Is TTIP compatible with popular notions of the EU as a social democratic force?
TTIP is the biggest shark in the water. It threatens it's an existential threat actually to everything that British people believe in, not least in the National Health Service, but not only in the National Health Service, in the whole concept of a public sector, of public service. TTIP is the great white shark in the water. Now, of course it's true that a British government might sign TTIP, though I would argue it's much less likely to, especially after this big campaign, than the European Union is likely to sign TTIP. The difference is we can remove a British government that signed TTIP. We cannot remove an EU if it signed TTIP. TTIP will mean the end. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it will mean that every US corporation will be legally entitled to bid for every service involved in Britain, whether that's a school, a university, a hospital, or any other kind of public service. And if it's not given the contract, will have the right to sue the British government to the point of national bankruptcy in protest at not being given the gig. Let me give you a concrete example. If the government were to do as it should and introduce measures to force corporations to cut the level of sugar in their product for health reasons, Coca-Cola could sue the British government for billions of dollars in lost profits, which would result. If a British government took action to clamp down on fracking or on genetically modified foods, the corporations involved in fracking and genetically modified foods could sue the British government for encroaching on their right to make a mega profit from both. Now, that's the end. There's then almost no point in voting, because you will have put yourselves on a tram line down which there's only one direction and outside of which there is no possibility of moving, which means that you really will be in Tweedledee and Tweedledum territory, or as I like to put it, two cheeks of the same arse territory. We've almost got there, but at least we're not legally forced to stay there. We could elect a government, say led by Jeremy Corbyn, that would think outside of that tramline, which would recognise that there were other ways that we could travel. So we have to stop TTIP. We're more likely to be able to stop it on a national level rather than in a European Union with 28 members, soon to be more, because most of those governments are right-wing corporatist governments, or governments that are slaves of the corporations. So it's much more likely that TTIP will be signed by the EU than it would be signed by a British government.
The EU is ensuring that by 2019 all European rail must be open to competition. Why is the EU taking the worst system on the continent, the British, and enforcing it on the best systems?
That's a very good way of putting it. I know of no one who travels on the French railway system who doesn't consider it very greatly superior to ours. And yet we are going to see imposed as the norm what you might call the Richard Branson school of running a railroad, which involves, of course, running an inferior system very much more expensively and gobbling up very much more in terms of public subsidy. I'm old enough to remember British Rail. It wasn't that great, but it only got 1/3 of the public subsidy that Branson and these other privateers get. If British Rail had been given 3 times the public subsidy and its management a good kick up the arse, we could have had a far better railway than we now have. And to drag the European continent down to our levels of railway provision will very quickly be regretted by the European travelling public.